Thank you guys for listening. This is a short sample of Cherrywood Inn, Let Me Love You, out November 2025. Randy had a front row seat to Caleb and Natira's story. Caleb found love, almost lost love, and then fought for love with everything that he had. Natira was the granddaughter of Mayanne Caldwell, founder of Cherrywood Inn Bed and Breakfast. Cherrywood was the first black-owned business in Cherry, North Carolina. While the bed and breakfast flourished when Mayanne was alive, after her death, the racial progress that the town had made reverted back to its historical ways. Natira had a hard time adjusting and being welcomed in this fake southern town. Unfortunately, Randy contributed to some of her initial bad experiences, but after getting to know her and understanding how her family history framed his family hate, he learned she was more than just a young black girl shaking up the dynamics of his hometown. He watched Caleb fall for her quickly, and soon Natira became the sister he never had. His grandfather loved Natira like family despite others' harsh treatment of her, simply on the account of the color of her skin. His grandfather's protection and support of her business were everything he needed to confirm his stance. Natira and Caleb were the balanced, healed family he never had. He felt something new for Sarah. He was immensely attracted to her. For weeks after the grand opening of Cherrywood Inn, he skirted around her and stumbled over words and even his own feet. He could not come within 10 feet of her without blanking. Her deep brown eyes seemed to pierce him every time. She would glare at him when he defied her advice on how to set something up. He loved that glare. Her smooth golden brown skin always looked like the afterglow before the sunrise. Even after a long day of working in the kitchen, she had a beautiful exotic light glow. She was definitely a black woman, but she had hints of other cultures in her skin. He wanted to ask her badly, but felt nervous. He tried once to ask about her family, and she simply said, "I don't talk about them." Over time, it got easier. He found himself grinning at her and saying, "Yes, boss," anytime she got worked up. She started talking more to him, even if it was a request for manual labor. Everything was going platonically well until Natira and Caleb's wedding this spring. Of course, they were strategically placed at the table together, and during the reception they shared one dance. It was at the insistence of Sabrina, Natira's aunt. Sarah had positioned herself with the baby as the baby watcher of Natira's new niece. He saw the emotions across her face the whole day. She seemed happy, but there was sadness in her eyes when the vows were being said. When Natira and Caleb entered the reception room with joyous shouts and excitement, she solemnly clapped. Then she sat down and positioned herself with the baby for the rest of the night. At some point, Sabrina grabbed him from the wall of the dance floor and walked him over to Sarah. "Thank you for holding Ayana May. I believe Randy wants to dance," Sabrina said, shocking him thoroughly. He had said no such thing, and before he knew it, Sabrina was removing the baby and pushing Sarah towards him. He had been watching her all evening. She was beautiful in her olive green dress. It was off the shoulder and her skin was begging to be touched. Her collarbone was exposed, and Randy had been imagining all night what it would be like to kiss her there. That was the main reason he was on the wall. He had reverted back to avoiding because the control of his reaction to her had been challenged by the plunge in the back of her dress. All the bridesmaids had some type of olive green dress, but Sarah's was backless, and Randy was wrecked by it. He watched her eyes before looking at her full lips. Well, Randy, do you want to dance or what? Her response was flippant, but it wasn't a no. She stood and adjusted her off the shoulder dress. He watched as the silky material slipped just a little in the front, and Randy almost lost it when the crest of her breast showed. The skin was sparkling like one of those vampire movies Natira made him watch. She had a sexy shape and height to match his. When he reached his hand out to her, he watched her eyes respond beautifully, letting them drop to her lips. He knew immediately that was a bad idea, so he went back to looking at her eyes. He grinned as a defense. Yes, boss, let's dance. Randy grinned harder when she huffed a little. He didn't miss how she inhaled when she took his hand, or how her breath seemed to rise a bit in fullness as he brought her body flush against his. As the DJ played a smooth R&B song, he listened to her hum. Do you know this song? He did not have to lean too far down because Sarah was about 6 foot with heel in her heels. Yes, one of my favorites. Her arms circled his neck loosely, but she did not look at him. Randy looked over her head and saw Caleb giving him a very corny 2 thumbs up. Randy tried to shake his head and ignore him. He was concentrating very hard on not having a hard on, but her collarbone was so close to his face, and his hands lay respectfully on her waist. But damn, the dress was backless, and the feel of her skin was enticing as hell. Do you listen to a lot of R&B? She asked. A little. Natira introduced me to Anthony Hamilton, and I've kinda grown from there. I like country music and the acoustic guitar stuff. Who is this playing? He liked her talking, and it wasn't about the end. He liked it and wanted to hear more. It's mid-condition. The song is Pretty Brown Eyes. Oh, just like yours. I like it. Randy felt her blush. She turned the she turned the direction of her head, and he lost view of her open shoulder, but he gained extra closeness as she laid her head on his chest. This is one of my favorite songs. Randy savored that one detail. He held on to every moment of that dance. For months he thought about how her caramel rose cheeks and the light honey glow of her shoulders. He thought about how delicate her hands clasped at the back of his neck, and how for a moment she let her hands rub the base of his neck. He thought about how much he wanted to touch more of her skin, and hear more of her voice. He knew she felt something in those moments. Last year, he wasn't in any position to dare try and ask a woman like Sarah out. His living situation was still developing, and he had yet to figure out what he truly wanted to do with his life. And his family, the Duncans, remained at a high simmer to drama and conflict. The new year brought positive change, and ever since the dance, he was resolved. Slow to move, unsure of success, but resolved. Randy had become a Sarah expert. She was skittish, guarded, but she was interested. Something had changed, and he was determined to go for it. Thank you for listening to the sample of Cherrywood in Let Me Love You. This is my new novel, which will be out in November of 2025. My name is Tanela Hicks of TanelaWrites, and thank you for your time. Have a great day.